Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Comedy.Law podcast, episode 11. I'm Max Langley, and with me, as always, are Shirelle and Keith. Today, we've got a special guest, our podcast editor and our law clerk, Blaise Bowers.
Comedy Law, yeah, we're here to play. Max, Shirelle, Keith leading the way. Lawyers with laughs and jokes to slay. Tune in, folks, it's Comedy Law today.
So, Blaise, what's something annoying that we've done in the first 10 episodes of this podcast when you're editing it?
You can't
Well,
narrow
before
that to
we-
one. Everything is annoying, right?
Well, Keith is right. But before we go into that, Comedy.Law is in session.
Yeah.
We had to do that. All right, now to answer your question, something that you guys do a little bit is you guys move your heads a lot, which is a bit annoying for me because
Yeah, we bob our
when
heads.
when I'm keyframing you guys, it sticks it to like a still frame. So, for example, if I'm trying to do something with Keith and he's moving his head, he's moving out of the keyframe. So what I have to do then is I have to animate the keyframe, and I have to add motion to it so it stays still. Because when you animate a keyframe, it automatically makes it to start.
So are
moving.
actors trained to not move their heads too much when they're giving dialogue?
Well, so usually there's a green screen, and if you move your head with a green screen, it's not a problem. But for podcast specifically, since there's only one frame, like keying is pretty much the only thing I can do. But normally
I
there's
see.
more equipment for actual tracking, and it's a little bit easier. But I don't have that equipment, so it's a little bit harder for me.
So how much can you move your head, Blaise? Because you're moving your head.
Mhm.
Can you move it a little bit, but not a lot of it?
Yeah, basically. So if I'm moving my head, just like if I'm talking like this and just staying still, the keyframe will be fine because it's very little. Like, for example, there's there's kind of like a grace distance when you're keyframing out. So I believe it's like 10%. So 10% outside of my head is fine. But if I'm moving my head like this, then I'm to make it
We
look
don't
like
do
my background
that.
here is now where my face is, and now the background is here where my face is, and so now my face is just gone. That's kind of what happens, unless I animate it.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Well, Max, the other thing Blaise meant is none of your jokes are funny.
Yeah, he has to make him funny. He helps convert them to make them a little more funny, you know?
Okay, but Max has admitted this on his LinkedIn, so I don't think that necessarily needs to be repeated.
Oh, that I'm not funny? Oh, I've been told. But hey, Uncle Kevin thinks I'm hilarious. He goes, "This is my nephew, Max. He's a lawyer, but he should be a comedian." And I'm like, "Thank you, Uncle Kevin. Thank you."
Okay,
What does
let's
Shirelle
talk
do
about
that's
Shirelle.
annoying?
I'm sure you have
Yeah.
a whole lot of stuff
Yeah, let's talk about Shirelle. What does Shirelle do that you
Yeah,
find
come on,
annoying? in this?
Nothing.
Give it up. Give it up.
Oh gosh, okay. I would say my favorite part of Shirelle stuff is, for starters, you've seen me do the question time on some of those
Yeah.
edits.
I like
That's
the
super
question time
fun.
edits. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I haven't done those in a while. I need to get back to doing the question time edits. But I also love the honesty scale. So we need to have Shirelle do an honesty
Yeah.
scale for Legally Blonde.
Yeah,
Those are the funniest
That's
parts for
hard
sure.
'cause she
On
didn't
every
watch
episode.
Well, the secret things that are untold by your podcast editor, you know, these
Mhm.
don't go told until that you get live on a podcast, and then they start to come out, and then you get self-conscious. Like these next 5 episodes, we're all going to be like thinking, "Oh gosh, I can't move my head too much," and then we're not going to be able to think as well.
The secret lives of editors.
Yeah. What would
Right,
you say you like doing more, Blaise? Editing or law clerking?
Well, it's an interesting question because they're very, very different things. They're very different skills.
Yeah.
Like, I love writing. I absolutely love writing. And I don't get to do any, like, real writing when I'm editing. So that's a big bonus with the law clerk work. I also have to think a lot harder when I'm doing the law clerk work. Sure, I have to be creative when I'm editing, but a lot of editing is more actually grunt work than you'd expect. It's a lot of putting the clips together, adjusting the panels and whatnot, making sure the audio is fine, making sure the video is fine, doing all these different things to make sure the episode actually looks good before you can even do the fun stuff like putting Max on a magic carpet. I haven't done that one yet, but I remember you used that example when you were interviewing me for this.
Yeah.
And With law clerk work, it's a lot more thinking. I have to actually think, okay, what are the causes of action? How am I going to argue this? What does Max need from me? Is this actually right? And then once you tell me it's absolutely all wrong and I have to redo it. So it's a lot more thinking when it's the
Because
law
you
clerk
use
work.
ChatGPT too much.
Oh, I actually haven't really used ChatGPT at all, except for creating that template thing. But again, we of course can't talk too much about that.
Can't talk
But
too much.
yep. But with the editing work, it's definitely a lot more like grunt work and not as much of the creative side. The creative side takes up a lot of time and it's a lot of fun, but it of course I first have to do all of like the actual grunt work of editing before I can get to the fun stuff.
Well, I got to tell you, Blaise, I'm amazed at everything you do. I mean, and your aspirations. So I'd like to hear a little bit, maybe a 5-minute summary of what you do and what you are aspiring to do.
Well, so I really see it as like a merging of creativity and like legal work. I really enjoy the idea of not just thinking of legal work as, oh, there's one path to it and there's one way of thinking and we just do the legal work. I like to think of it more almost like a story. Like we're trying to build the different paths of a story. We're trying to figure out what our client needs, what the opposition needs, meet in the middle, and trying to figure out the best way forward. And that's a lot like storytelling. There's a lot of creativity to it. And I like that aspect, but I also like the idea of kind of intellectual work. I like having to think. I like being challenged intellectually. And the law kind of combines both of that. And so really the main summary of my aspirations is that I want to do creative work and I want to do legal work. And I want to find the bridge that combines them.
Well, I think you did a great job of describing Legally Blonde.
Yep, exactly.
Blaise is being modest, by the way. He told me he wants to win an Oscar and win a Supreme Court case.
That is true. I also want to do that.
Okay, ambitious. So how do you think you might be able to merge like your creativity with the legal stuff?
Well, because like I said, I feel like in many ways there is an issue of creativity not being used enough in the legal field.
Yeah.
And there's just so much case precedent. There's so much laws, bills. There's so much you can use. And just like creativity and just like writing and acting and that sort of thing, there's so many tools in the toolbox. I feel like lawyers in many cases will use the obvious tools and not think deeper about what those other tools can be. And so part of it is the actual like researching the cases, reading, learning, that sort of thing, which I do enjoy. But the other part is actually thinking critically, which is very important for storytelling. People like to say storytellers have to be really intelligent because they have to be able to think critically and understand what they're writing about and be able to learn a lot of different things. And I think the law is a very similar aspect of that, since you have to learn all these cases, all these bills, and you have to think critically about how they actually apply and how you can apply it in a way that the other side isn't going to think about. Because if you just do all of the obvious ways of applying a case, the other side is just going to say, oh, okay, I know what he's going to do. I'm just going to counter that. I know how to counter that. I know what he's going to say. But if you bring something that's a little more creative that they may know about but didn't think about for this case, then you're actually keeping them on your toes.
Right. I agree with you on that.
Yeah, I just read an article about writing and putting comedy in your legal writing, which, the first point was be careful or maybe don't do it. But it's interesting to think that, to spice up legal writing, which is really boring, to try to add a little bit of levity into it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can't go full dragon lawyer, but you can definitely add some interesting little bits and pieces.
Does Keith know the dragon lawyer story?
I don't.
Ooh, okay.
That's a good one. How does it
Tell
go,
that
Blaise?
story.
How does the dragon lawyer story go?
Okay, this is the extent I know of it. There was this lawyer. I don't remember where he's from, but his firm is called like what?
Yeah, I don't remember, but it's called the Dragon Lawyer, right?
Yeah. So he's called the Dragon Lawyer, and his firm is like based around like dragons. That's like their logo. And the logo is basically like a dragon head wearing a suit. Okay, cool. I can dig it. And during the actual case, on his like, I think it was like his like lawsuit or something like that, he put a watermark of the Dragon Lawyer logo on every page. And so just as the judge is reading it, it's just like, oh, okay, I see. Here's the cause of action on the snout. He's just reading this case with the huge dragon lawyer watermarks on the actual
Yeah,
pages.
that's a little too much comedy, right?
Yeah, like, I mean, it's entertaining for us, but I can't imagine being the judge having to deal with that.
Yeah, it became an internet meme, and it became it spread kind of like wildfire, like memes do. And he got reprimanded by the judge, and the judge said, "Don't do this ever again." But a lot of people just jokingly posted, on LinkedIn, on X, on wherever you want to go, and posted the dragon lawyer watermark and said, I'm going to do this next. And but luckily, I don't think anybody's done it next.
Yeah, I
Not
can
the
tell
case
you
for
that,
case.
Blaise, there's not a whole lot of comedy in law. I haven't
Not a lot.
seen a lot.
Yeah, and there's not a whole lot of room for creativity because what law is based on precedent. And so you look at the case authorities, the binding authorities, and then you extract from there. You can connect the dots. That's kind of where the creativity might come in, is connecting the dots between cases and showing that, that you've got a winner, fitting your story into their story. You've got to merge two stories together, essentially. You got to say, hey, we're Legally Blonde 2. We're the sequel to Legally Blonde 1. This case is Legally Blonde 1. We're the sequel. And that's how you convince a judge to rule in your favor.
Yeah, very well said. And I mean, there's kind of interesting connections with like writing in that, because when you're writing, you are in a way thinking about past stories, since nothing you're going
Yeah.
to write is going to be completely original. And
Yeah.
so with writers, they often have to think, what is the slant that's going to make a reader want to read this? What's the slant that's going to make this unique? And it's a similar way with judges. The slant is, how is this case similar but also dissimilar to this other case? And why should I rule in a similar way or a dissimilar way to this other judge?
Well,
Yeah.
you have an aspiration to go to law school, correct?
Yes.
So immediately on this podcast, you would ask people, should I go to law school? And a lot of lawyers would tell you, no, don't ever do that. I'm kind of the mind of saying you should go. You may not practice law. You may write. You may do something else. A lot of people go to law school and don't ever intend to be a lawyer practicing law. So it's a very interesting thing. The problem, one of the big problems is the stress of practicing law. So that's why I think that having a little bit of levity, a little bit of comedy, maybe not dragon lawyer, but put a little bit in there just to keep things a little bit spiced up.
Yeah, maybe keep it in the footnotes. Don't put it in the main text.
Yeah, that's a good point. And with what I want to do entertainment law. And what I've heard about entertainment law is that since there's not as many entertainment lawyers, they're there, but they need more. It can be a little bit less stressful to feel since they give you more benefits. That's at least what I've heard, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Yeah, and entertainment law I think is interesting because it's not a traditional practice field of the law. Like it's not like you're a trial lawyer if you're an entertainment lawyer, and you're not exactly a transactional lawyer either. You're kind of both. You're kind of a mix. So it's an interesting field. We had a case in California recently, or a mediation in California, where we met the mediator, and he said his son is an entertainment lawyer in LA. So we might try to get his contact info and connect him with you. And
Well, it opens up so many doors for people like Shirelle or you who are engaging and outgoing. You can be an agent. You can you can provide legal work, but there's a lot of stuff in there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think a career in the entertainment industry could be fun. Not as fun as surety, but but I feel like it could definitely be fun to kind of work with different kinds of people. So Blaise, an entertainment lawyer, that's movies, film, movies, television, music, is that kind of thing, correct?
Yeah, so usually entertainment lawyers specialize. There's some that specialize into music law, and they usually go to like Nashville, Tennessee, those kind of places. But a lot of entertainment lawyers are specialized to film television. And there's two kind of succinct versions of entertainment law. There's kind of like transactional, like working on a film set and working on chain of command and that sort of thing to try and make sure the film set's up to date legally. The other side is like litigation, where you're actually going to enforce copyright marks, that sort of thing. So it really depends on like which side. I want to do more of the litigation side, but I think also doing some of the more like actual transactional on the actual film set stuff might also be interesting. But I'm really more interested in the actual litigation side.
Well,
Okay.
Shirelle worked on that comedy right there, saying that Surety is so much fun. It's let's put it this way: it's complex, it's interesting, fun. May not be the way that everyone
If
describes
you're
it.
weird like me, it's fun. Sherelle might be weird like me. I don't know if she's weird like me, but I'm weird. I think Surety's fun.
Well,
I
I do
enjoy it.
too. But of course, the first thing is what the heck is Surety? So we won't touch that. We're talking about entertainment law and agency, being an agent. I mean, it's huge. It's a whole wide world to think of all the issues involved.
You could get some of that $440 million that Reese Witherspoon has if you're her entertainment lawyer.
Yeah, that's
She's
a good point
she's had a
too.
lot of lawsuits too,
Yeah, that's a great point. And what's kind of interesting is I've enjoyed surety. I think it's an interesting field. I don't want to specialize it as a lawyer, but I do find it interesting. And before I was working with you guys, I was working at a different firm. You may have heard of it, American Auto Shield Car Shield. If you've seen some of their commercials, but they do vehicle service contracts, which is similar, but definitely not the same as surety. But it's kind of in the similar like insurance-esque world as surety. And so I got to see that aspect of how vehicle service contracts goes. And now I've gotten to see surety and get to connect the dots and say, okay, how's it similar, dissimilar? What can I learn from American Auto Shield that I can apply to this job?
Talk about college for a second. What do you focus on to prepare you for your subsequent career?
So right now I'm admitted for business administration at Chapman University, and they have a lot of huge connections in the entertainment field. I believe they're the fourth or third best film school in the country. I think it's fourth. And they have a lot of big connections to firms like Disney, Blumhouse, big companies. And what I've been able to take away from that is I can learn about the business side, which, to quote someone I met actually at Chapman when I was visiting there, law is in effect business. A lot of what goes into law is what goes into business. And so having a business education is important for law. And specifically, I want to get a minor in business of entertainment and learn kind of about that side. But for my major, I have to specialize into something. So I want to specialize into economics, partially just because I find economics to be super, super interesting. But I also think it's better applicable to the entertainment industry than just entrepreneurship. And so I want to take that business education, learning about the film industry, but also business in general, to apply to law school so that I can have a more nuanced understanding of law once I actually am practicing.
Yeah, if I were you, I'd major in fashion instead.
Well, I
Fashion
actually
is
don't think she
good.
has that. I don't think they have that, but I mean, hey, that's a good thing to consider.
Have you thought about law schools that anything that advances your interest?
Yeah, I would say so. I also think because I've heard a lot about law school being just something you go to and then you actually learn law when you're practicing. That's what I've heard a lot of people say. But I think I think just having 2 to 3 years to sit down and actually learn law, research it, not practice it, but research it, learn it, and kind of hone in my skills. I think that'd be interesting because right now, of course, I'm just kind of like bouncing around, vacillating between a bunch of different skills and experiences, that sort of thing. But having 2 to 3 years to sit down and actually read the law, look at the law, learn the law before actually going back to doing all these things and practicing law, it would be interesting to get to have that time to actually sit down and learn it, really.
And
Yeah,
Blaise, you got to say 2.5 to 3 because nobody finishes in 2. You can't do that. That's illegal.
Okay. Now that is a good point as well.
if you want to learn all about law school, just watch my cousin Benny. He'll tell you you don't learn anything in law school.
Procedure.
Procedure.
Your law
What
firm teaches you procedure.
Now, what I've heard a lot of is that like the L3 year is like absolutely useless, and that's what I've really heard because
Yeah,
everyone's like,
you gotta do like externships in that one, and you can do externships, so that's what you want to do. even if it's something that you wouldn't necessarily do. Like I did innocence clinic, and we did cases where it was post conviction, and we tried to get them out based on newly discovered evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And that taught me a lot about certain aspects of trial procedure and the injustices in our legal system. So
Mhm.
you get kind of like a little bit of a passion for it.
So, Max, I do want to ask a question. I've heard a lot of people say externships versus internships, but I don't really know what the actual difference is. So, what is the difference between externships and internships?
With externships, you still have a teacher in your class,
Mm-hmm.
and like you like with this one, you report to your teacher directly. Internships, you don't have a teacher, and it's not for credit. Externships are for credit. Internships are not for credit.
Okay, perfect. That explains it.
But take internships too, like in Legally Blonde where they talked about the summer clerkship and the summer associate.
That was
You
an
want
externship.
those as much as you can. You want to get those.
Have you looked at reading the law at all, Blaise?
Well,
Is he
I
in the
have
state
like
where he can read the law?
for this job a little bit. Yeah, I've been having to read some cases. And like when I was doing my internship with AAS, I was like going and just like reading cases that weren't really assigned to me or weren't really necessary for me to read, but just kind of wanted to read about. And what I was doing for a while is like I would be watching a legal movie. I would see them talk about something in the like legal field, and I would be like, okay, I'm gonna Google this and see what this is. I'm gonna read the case they're talking about. I'm gonna figure out if this is accurate what they're talking about in the movie, or I'm just gonna learn more about this. And just from doing that, I was able to actually build a slight knowledge of the law to where I was actually able to apply to AAS to an extent.
I
Well,
think what Keith's talking about is getting into the practice of law by just reading into it. Read the law in you internship with a lawyer instead of taking the bar exam.
Mm-hmm.
well, in California, you can go to law school or you can read the law. And
Yeah.
to read the law means you work for a practicing lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether you can do that, instead of your third year. You can get a bar license in California from reading the law and taking some tests rather than going to law school. So
Mm-hmm.
there are a few states in the country, and it used to be a lot more that did not require law school. But that might be something to look at, especially that third year, which I can confirm it is absolutely worthless.
Well, that's a great point, Keith, because I had no idea about that. I didn't know that you could supplement even just your third year for reading the law. So I'm gonna have to look into that a bit more.
But definitely something to look at because you probably need to figure out how to make it third year more useful.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us learn to play a lot of golf.
Well,
Didn't they
especially
come
since
in?
you
Didn't they come in handy for those conferences?
yeah.
It came in very handy.
Well, I know Max does a lot of golf. That's what I've been hearing.
Yeah, not as much anymore. I played like quite a bit. Yeah, I have like bursts where I'll play and then where I won't play. I don't want to get too good. I like to just be mediocre at golf.
Well, I got to say, you are very, very mediocre at golf.
Wow, friendly fire.
Right.
Hey, Max has a lot to be humble about.
I do.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Oh, Max should do the putt with me at the next conference.
The sip and putt, I'm down.
Yeah.
But how do you do it with a glass of wine in your hand? Do you one hand it?
I can
You
teach
can,
you that.
yeah.
I think that Shirelle, I will be involved.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Should be fun. I like going to the sip and putt because I'm no good at golf anyway. And I'm bad at sip and putt too, but it's okay. I got a drink in my hand. It's fine.
Blaise is the putt kind of guy.
Oh yeah, no, I can't do regular golf. I'll try, but I won't get into any of the holes. So it's more about the actual shaking hands and getting the business contact. Not that
That's a big deal. That's a big deal. I think that is huge.
Yeah, for your
Yeah.
generation though, Blaise, people are going to play either cornhole or just not even meet in person because nobody meets in person anymore.
They're gonna do those like iPhone poker games. That's what they're gonna
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, like Discord poker, yeah.
There you go. It's definitely been interesting to see because I know, like with LinkedIn and a lot of these more online platforms for connecting with other people, I've gotten to see how a lot of my network, a lot of the people that I've learned the law from, or well, learn about the law or talked about the law with, have just been online. And those are experiences that if
Yeah.
I didn't have access to the internet or if those opportunities weren't there, I would not have as much legal experience. The only
Yeah.
opportunity that I've really gotten outside of the internet was my internship at AAS. That's it. And that's just because my dad already worked there, so he was able to refer me. But
Yeah.
otherwise, like all my opportunities have been from meeting people online, which I find to be a really interesting, unique aspect of this generation.
Yeah, you can meet
Right.
so many cool people online. That's how we met. We just randomly connected, and then you messaged me, and I was like, "You're a dumb 17-year-old. Go away." And then you're like, "No, I want to intern. This is real. This is true. You can look at our DMs. This is what really happened." I was like, "No, you like we hire law students. We don't hire high school students." And Blaise was 17 at the time, and he's like, "No, I can do it." And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't think you can do it, and like go away." And he's like, "No, I really think I can do it." And then he comes in there, and I'm like, "All right, I'm gonna give him kind of like a test run," and he does very, very well. And I'm like, this is it's amazing who you can meet, because there's people that you don't think you're gonna give that kind of opportunity to, but then they turn out to do a great job, like you've been doing, Blaise, and you've been learning and you've been adapting, and I think you're an asset.
Oh, well, thank you. And kind of my side of that was I was just kind of scrolling through LinkedIn and I see a weird post. I'm like, okay, this is strange. I guess I'll maybe comment on this, as I've done with plenty of other posts. And now I'm commenting on all of his weird posts. Okay, great. And now I have a job, so I guess it worked.
Well, I think that the social media is, it's something I'm slowly learning, but you need that information, and everyone wants information, and you can put so much information on LinkedIn. I've learned lately about videos. People really like video, and so the content in the video. So the next challenge for me is to figure out how to link or put in LinkedIn more video of whatever issue I need to talk about.
That's why you wanted a video camera to connect to your computer.
That's why.
Blaise, he asked me for a video camera to connect to the computer, and I was like, "What the heck is that? Do you mean webcam?" And he's
There,
like,
there you go.
"Yeah, I mean webcam."
I had one of those for a while, but I don't know where it went. And it was with my old computer. So now that I got this new one, I got this computer only like a month ago. It's a very new computer. And so I've just been trying to like figure out the ropes of this one. But yeah, no, Keith, you're absolutely right. Like there's so much that you can learn and see on the internet. And it's cool that since we've been like I've been growing up specifically in the age where it's actually really been spiraling and growing and changing. I've gotten to see that evolution in real time, and I've gotten to see like I mean I wasn't alive when I was just seeing it go beep bop boop. Now I'm actually seeing you do something more with it, and that's been really interesting for
Yeah.
me personally.
Yeah, and Blaise has been doing something more with it too. He's got like 30,000-40,000 followers on Instagram. It's pretty
Yep.
Oh,
good
nice.
for
I do
his
have that as well.
acting career. But I think he's gonna maybe it's like a lifestyle blog for him. So it's interesting to read his Instagram.
Yeah, I focus more on like my personal life and what I've been doing. I try to find interesting things. Like whenever I have an opportunity come up, I'll post about it. But it's really, really weird to think, oh, I have to get out my phone and take a picture. It's a strange, strange thought because I'm really an in the
Yeah.
moment kind of person. I'm not the kind of person who's like, hey guys, check out my life. I'm more of a, I'm
You don't
actually
have
going to be here and
you
do
don't have a
this.
selfie stick?
I do, but I don't actually use it.
Wow.
It's my mom's. And that's kind of the thing. 'Cause my mom was really the person who was actually managing my Instagram and taking those pictures and doing that stuff. And so I actually, for a while, didn't have to like not live in the moment because my mom was the one actually documenting things. But now that I'm 18 and have been taking over that kind of stuff for myself, it's really turned more into me actually having to consciously think I need to document this with my phone, which is a strange, strange thought for me. So it's been a process. It's definitely been a process.
Yeah, I
I
saw your
totally
post.
agree with you, Blaise. It's very hard to think about that, but so many people think about recording things on their phone. I've never even thought about recording voice only, but
Mhm.
all of that, it's all available.
Oh gosh, I don't do any of like the voice only stuff. I text. I do not do like voice messages.
Well, what you got to look into next is wearables. You can, wear a brooch and it can record whatever you guys are talking about.
Oh, it's like a little mini GoPro.
Yes, it's like a mini GoPro, but it will actually use AI to after you can be on your daily walk and say, "Hey, I need to do 1, 2, 3," and it'll note that down and add it to your calendar.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So it's almost like those Meta Ray Bans that Max really wanted to get.
That I do
no,
have.
that's way cool.
Yeah, those AI glasses. I remember when they were first coming out. Like, I told my dad about those, and he was like, "No." He's a tech guy, so he was like, "No way, those can't be real," and they were real. And it's
Mhm.
They
been
are
interesting. Like,
real.
they are. I want one of those eventually, but I feel like I would look like such a nerd walking around being like, "Hey, Meta, add Zoom to my calendar." Like,
No, the
Is that what
glasses
you're
look
doing?
exactly like what you have on now, or what
mhm.
Shirelle is wearing. I mean, you can't tell. They have, if you turn on the video, it'll let you know. It'll blink, but if you're listening to something, it, I wouldn't know that you are listening.
Mhm.
So, what do
Yeah,
you think,
exactly.
Blaze? What do you think is the future of AI, in your opinion, based on somebody who's kind of coming of age with using that AI? Where do you see it in, like 10 years? Do you see it as taking a lot of jobs? Do you see it as being beneficial for lawyers? What do you see AI and Chat GPT in 10 or so years?
Well, so I kind of see this from more of an economic perspective. It's really what's called functional unemployment. So, functional unemployment is the idea of jobs being taken away by new technology, and that's not a new thing. But what often happens is new jobs end up forming from those old jobs that got taken away,
Yeah.
or new, just completely separate jobs end up forming. So I don't
Mhm.
see it as a lot of people see it like, oh, AI evil. I see it more as it's a tool. Use it as a tool. Don't use it as an end all be all for everything. And as like I said, I'm not a huge techie person, but my dad is. And we had a conversation recently about this. And what he told me is AI is not AI, it's a recycling tool, which is true. It isn't. True artificial intelligence would be it's actually coming up with things on its own. It's actually thinking things through. And it's actually thinking critically about what you need and how it's going to give you what you need. It needs to think like a person. And right now it just doesn't. But it's still helpful. I've
Yeah.
used it a lot for like research stuff. Like for example, I did Model UN for several years in high school since freshman year. And since the Google AI searching tools have come out, what I've done is I've been able to type in a question. Google gives me like 7 or 8 links. I click on all those links, I read them, and I've got my research done. And that's been really helpful for me. It's been a helpful tool. But it hasn't replaced my actual thinking. I still have had to read the articles, I still have had to formulate my own opinions, and I still had to write whatever I needed to write in the end. So
Yeah.
really, I think that the best way that AI should be used is to use it to enhance what you're doing, not make it just easy. So
Supplement,
Yeah.
don't replace. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
agree.
instead of just, oh, I need to write this research paper, AI can write it for me. What I more think of it as is, I need to write a research paper. I'm going to write a rough draft. I'm going to have AI tell me what it thinks of the rough draft, and then I'm going to amend accordingly. That
Yeah.
way I have a better product in the end. I still have to put in work, but I have a tool that can help me put in better work.
I agree with
Well, I
that.
think the great thing, Blaze, is you've got to use all your judgment for law school, and of course, judgment comes from making bad decisions. So you learn about bad decisions not working. I made most errors. I'm pretty close to all of them. So I have a lot of judgment. Uh, but AI, you're right. It'll give you information and you have to do something with that information.
Yeah, so it's almost like it's helping you to stress test your judgment and figure out what you actually need to do, what you actually need to learn from an experience, rather than you just having to grunt through it and learn from it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about Legally Blonde if everybody's okay with that. I raised the roof for that. Blaze doesn't know what that is. You don't know
I
what
was
raised.
gonna
Raise the Roof
say,
is. Are you kidding me? I know what Raise the Roof is.
Oh my gosh, that was 1995. You were not even. You were nothing in 1995,
I was
Blaze.
not even a thought.
Yeah.
right. I'm
Well.
like, wait a
Okay. Okay. So I wanted to start by saying that I think that what we just talked about a little bit, kind of the stumbling and the fake it till you make it a little bit. That's what Legally Blonde, what she learned in there was that when she was trying to become a lawyer, she stumbled and she fell and she didn't know what she was doing. But then she gets better and better as time goes on. And so it's kind of like acting, right, Blaze? Like you're acting and like you don't know what a lawyer is, but they're like, be a lawyer. And you're like, oh my God. But then you kind of learn it. You study lawyers, you study Darrow, you study, the OJ Simpson trial, you study whatever you want, and then you emulate that. And that's what she was doing, like when she was trying to get the dog back for her
Mhm.
nail tech. She said, habeas corpus, which means you have the body. And so that's technically right. He did have the body. He had the body of the dog. Uh, but that's not the right thing to say, but it worked. So that's the
Mhm.
most important thing. You stumble, you try your best, and then it turns out it still kind of works even when you're in that fake it till you make it stage.
Well,
Yeah,
the
and
thing
it's
for me, and I flip this to you, Blaze, you mentioned telling a story. And what's important about the movie to me is you don't check your common sense at the door. When you become a lawyer, you actually use your common sense and you use your life experiences. And here, that's what Reese does. She uses her life experiences and pays off in a very big way. You know, she knew about perms. The issue for the movie here was she was very, very wise and very smart. I guess the right word is smart. She had a lot of intellect, even though she was blonde. And yours truly, who has a little bit of gray, but used to be blonde. And the issue was, hey, if you know about perms, and the fact that you shouldn't get those wet, then use it. Whatever you know, whatever you're good at, use it. And it applies so many times. So, Blaze, it goes back to that issue of tell the story and relate to people as people.
yeah, and like kind of the framing. There's also the thing of her knowing that the pool boy was gay. There was
Yeah.
that aspect too of her being
The
able
shoes.
to
Last
like,
year's
oh,
Prada.
those shoes, and then asking Warren, oh, what kind of shoes are these? Black.
I
I would have been in Warren's shoes there. I don't know shoes.
don't know
But
shoes.
there's that idea of judgment and how she was able to take that kind of common sense, just like Keith said, and directly apply it to the case in two different ways in order to win the case effectually. And that
Right.
really kind of applies throughout the whole show. When she's first getting into Harvard, you would think that she doesn't have common sense. The way she's dressing, the way she has the dog all with her, you would think that she doesn't actually have common sense. But then she actually learns, she grows, she sees how people make fun of her, and she twists that around and uses that to her advantage in the
And
end.
but then she never changes though. That's the most important thing. She's steadfast. She stays, pink, right? And that's her thing. And she owns it. And that's important in life is to own it. Own who you are. Own the weird. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's no such thing as normal. I was talking to my Uber driver on the way back from the airport in Pensacola about this. There's no such thing as real normal. A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
think they're normal, but no, everybody's unique. And if you let your uniqueness shine, then that's your trademark.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good thing.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what happens with the jury. I mean, the jury is going to know about you.
Mm-hmm.
They will know about you. If you have 12 people on jury, they're not going to miss anything. And here we have stereotypes. We have Reese's, she wears pink, kind of like Max's shirt. It's pink, and she's blonde. And so you stereotype her and you think she's a dumb blonde. She's ditzy. Well, far from it. Far from it. And so you have to deal with all the stereotypes. And whether you're talking about shoes or perms or whatever, everyone is going to have a whole lot of common sense. Not all of it, but everyone is going to have their version.
Yeah, and kind of on that, with the idea of having a personal trademark and being unique. When I was doing Model UN throughout high school, from I believe freshman year to sophomore year, I wore the exact same suit every single time, every conference. And we have about 5 or 6 conferences a year, so people saw me a lot wearing that suit. What I got to learn from that is people started to recognize me from that suit. They remembered me. They would say, "Oh, you look really great. That's a great suit." And I was able to use that to my advantage. And so later, once I, junior and senior year, I got a bunch of different new suits. I started to try different things. And I learned that even if I'm wearing a different suit, the idea of just having a unique suit or having a cool looking suit that's still professional, it can go a long way. And I've kind of built that into being part of my trademark is I always wear a hat. I always wear a fedora. It's my favorite kind of hat. And people remember me by that. I always wear some kind of interesting, unique suit. People remember me by that. And I've been able to kind of use that to my advantage in Model UN specifically.
I didn't notice that you have a suit on. Now I see it. That's good. The first person to show up to this podcast wearing a suit. If you're the youngest or you're the most junior associate or law clerk in the room, you do want to wear a suit. Like when I was a law clerk in Fort Lauderdale with Eddie, I'd wear a suit every day, and they'd call me GQ because they just wore shorts and like a Hawaiian shirt to the office, and they'd be like, GQ lunch, and I'd be like, I would be beaming, I loved being called GQ.
Yeah, and that was kind of how my experience was with AAS. I was the only person who wore a suit in the office. The other people who were in legal, is a very small legal department, they dressed nice, they dressed reasonable, but I still dressed the most nice. And that benefited me a lot there. I got recognized more. People were like, "Oh, who's the smart young man in the suit?" They didn't know me, but they still attributed smart to me. And I was able to really take a lesson from that and say, if I look good, people will attribute that to success in many ways.
And you kind of feel good. If you look good, you feel good.
Oh, yeah.
You think better. Like in Legally Blonde, what I noticed is that they had no laptops, they had no computers, I didn't see any cell phones in sight. This was a 2001 movie. So cell phones had just kind of come out they've been out for a while, but I never saw a single one in the whole movie. And nobody was, focused on any of that. But when then they showed up to the office, people were dressed nice. They had suits on at the office with the creepy guy that, the professor that turned out to be creepy. But they all wore something nice. And I think that pays off because, like, when they met the lady in prison, she thought that the law clerks were the lawyers because they were dressed like the lawyers.
Exactly.
Well, and Shirelle, you talk about, your distinctive standout issue, your hair, the color of your hair. People are going to remember, hey, that's Shirelle, and they're not going to forget what Shirelle does.
Well, I also try whenever I go to these conferences to always dress really nicely, just so that people.
Yeah, you do.
Well, yeah, even like Max said, you feel good when you look good, but also because I feel like it stands out. A lot of people at the surety conferences come. They're dressed well. But nothing really stands out. Nothing in particular stands out about anyone's outfit. So I just, try to dress really well. I like to wear bright colors because people are going to notice, oh, who's in the purple hair and the royal blue dress, so I like to stand out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And Shirelle, I am curious, what did you think of the movie? Where did you rank it on your honesty scale?
Well, I didn't watch it.
Unfortunately.
There.
There we go. Okay, that's fine.
I do get the premise of it, but I didn't watch it. So
Have you never
Okay,
seen it
that's
I
before?
liked
You've
it a
never
lot.
seen
I
it?
mean, I watched it way back many years ago, and I watched it again. I have to say, I really enjoyed the movie. And it's so true. You know, here's a blonde in a pink dress going off to Harvard Law School.
Mhm.
Wow, that certainly doesn't seem like the regular student. Um, so people who have actually been to Harvard would probably say she really stands out. But as a law student, sh for anyone, she stands out.
I
Mhm.
I liked it too. I give it probably an 8.6 out of 10. And what I'd
Okay.
say, one thing, Blaze, that you should take from it is that 1L year, that first year in law school, it's called scare you to death. That's what they
Mhm.
call it. And she got kicked out of her first class. Was it like Civ Pro or something like that? That she just got kicked out for not knowing subject matter jurisdiction. And
No, she hadn't done her homework,
Yeah.
and so I guess that's the point. You know, there's going to be a lot of scare tactics. You pretty much need to ignore those, but you have to really focus. That first year is so important.
and it's so hard because law school is the first time where your intellect can no longer carry you. It
Mhm.
cannot carry you. In high school especially, and before high school, you can kind of coast by on just your smarts. And
Mhm.
but come law school, everybody is smart, especially if you get
Mhm.
into a really, really good law school. I mean, in pretty much every law school, though, everybody's going to be smart, like very, very smart, like top of their class smart. So your intellect alone, you can't skate by on that. You have to put in the work. You have to
Mhm.
read, and it's a lot of reading. It's like 70 pages per class,
Oh Lord.
like every couple of days, and that will grind on you. But you just have to soldier up and do it.
Yeah, and one of the big things I took away from the movie was when she's in the creepy professor's class for the first time. I'm forgetting his name, and he's talking. Oh, which would you rather
Callahan.
have? Callahan. Yep, there you go. Would you rather have a client that's charged with a Malin Inse crime or a Malin Prohibitum crime? When I first watched the movie, I didn't know what that was. I googled it later. But I love her answer afterwards once she actually hears kind of what gets a general idea of what it is. She says, I would rather Malin Inse because I like a challenge
I
because
like
it's
a
the more
challenge. Yeah,
dangerous one.
bring me the murder trial.
Exactly. I think that's a great mentality to have just because the other lady, girl, I forgot, Vivian, her
Yeah,
first answer is Malin Prohibitum just because it's easier. And that's not a great
yeah.
mentality to have. You should be seeking out things that are more challenging. So that's a great thing I took away from
Maybe
Ellie.
maybe you should, Blaze, but I'm gonna tell you, the most happy lawyers are those traffic ticket lawyers because all they gotta do
Mhm.
is they go into court. They're the first ones that they get expedited hearings, so they get to
Mhm.
go first in line before all the plebs go. And the
Mhm.
judge always knows them, and the judge will pretty much almost always dismiss those cases. We'll be like, "Oh, hey Jerry, golf on Sunday? Yeah, okay, dismissed." And those cases are easy peasy, and
Mhm.
they just get them. They get them by the truckload. But you never have to worry about that. Like the cases that we have with surety, they keep us up at night sometimes because they're tough fact situations, and we're in tough legal concepts, and so we're
Mhm.
up at night thinking about them. But
Well,
nobody
that's
in
the
the world
truth
is
of
up
the
at night
matter,
thinking about those.
Blaze, is, there's going to be stress, and you're going to put a lot more stress on yourself, like Max just described, because you're going to actively be thinking about issues.
Mhm.
Um, that's pretty much, the way people are. I mean,
Mhm.
if you are a type A person and your brain is churning all the time, it's going to continue to churn,
Mhm.
which is why they call it practice. You're never going to master it. Never.
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. And I do find that as an interesting idea of how it's harder and more stressful to do something that's actually more, maybe a little bit more worthwhile, maybe has a bigger impact in many ways, but it's still worth it in the end. And so I think that's like you kind of have to think about your own mental health and figure out how exactly I can do this and while making sure it's sustainable and not burn myself out without just maybe taking the easier route. That's kind of the way I think of it.
That's why I'm
Well,
surprised that you want to do Big Law.
she's right. She was nervous throughout the movie, and you're going to be nervous forever. I mean, if you don't get real uncomfortable and maybe even feel like throwing up when you go to court and you've been practicing for 40 years, you're doing something wrong. You're gonna be nervous every time. You'll get used to it, you'll learn to deal with it, but so much is riding on what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of similar advice that I got from my mentor at AAS. She was saying that you have to think about kind of like what the client needs, what the client wants, but you have to think about what you need yourself and how you can actually make sure the law is sustainable and deal with work in a less stressful way. It was we were working inside of an in-house counsel, so it was a very different world than what I've been experiencing here. Since it's like we got sued and we had to deal with that, but it wasn't as much of we're seeking out clients that are being sued. We weren't seeking out clients. We had our client. It was AAS. So there was that interesting aspect of that kind of job specifically.
So what do you like better, in-house or out-house?
It's hard. I kind of like more out of house counsel because there's more going on. But what was really nice about working in-house is I could just kind of get up at my desk and go get a hot chocolate. And that was great. I didn't have to.
We banned that. We banned that behavior a long time ago.
Exactly. No, like I could work for 10 minutes, stare out into space for 2, go back to working for 30 minutes, go get my 7th hot chocolate that day, and then just keep working. And it worked. I was able to churn out good quality work in that kind of environment. And that was fun. But I also like with this job, sitting at my computer for 3 hours and cranking something out. That's also a kind of different but interesting way of working. And so I've had to like match that with also going and playing video games for a little bit, watching TV for a little bit to make sure I can do my work but not like burn out from the work.
But that's what you do is outside counsel too, not burn out, because you need to effectively represent your clients, and you can't do that when you're in a poor mental state. There's so many lawyers, like with Big Law especially, that they make them work like 13 hours a day.
Oh gosh.
And that's not human. That's alien. That's some weird things going on over there. And that's why I think like small law is just healthier in general. Not always. It depends on where you work. But mental health is the most important thing to focus on when you're a lawyer. Because look, if you're making $400,000 a year, but you're completely burnt out and you're ready to quit after 2 years, versus making 200, what do you pick? You got to have to decide that for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, I can't answer that question now. I have to actually go through my undergrad, go through law school, get more experience in the legal field, and think about what I prefer and how I can actually cope with whichever decision I end up choosing.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's why some people, they go to law school and deviate. They decide, hey, I'm going to be an author, and it helped me to go to law school. Or, hey, I'm going to go be a finance person, but it helped me to go to law school. And you always have to be true to yourself, and you have to look at, hey, what do I really find interesting?
Exactly.
All right. I think this concludes episode 11. Blaise, I think you might come back for Legally Blonde 2. Why would we get somebody else for Legally Blonde 2? We might need to just have you come on season 2. So I was thinking season 1 is like these legal thriller movies like this, or any kind of legal movie. And we do like a couple more of these for season 1. And then we hop into season 2 where we do a different genre of movies. Or maybe something like that. We'll see. I gotta talk with my co-producers Shirelle and Keith.
And
either way, I'll be here to edit it.
Yeah.
How many episodes are we doing for season 1 though?
Just like a few more. I want to get the movie Michael Clayton in. I don't know if you guys have seen that. I want to get that.
I've heard of it. I don't think I saw it.
It's my favorite legal movie.
this is the first episode where we've talked about a movie that I've actually seen. So maybe I should start watching some of the movies we've been talking about.
I know, it's
I still haven't
crazy.
watched
I did a poll on LinkedIn, and Legally Blonde is the only one that like everybody's seen. Like the other movies, people just haven't seen those.
There you
The
go.
movies have been a great idea. I've really learned a lot, enjoyed the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll be back, I think, the second week of July. We don't have anybody booked for the first week of July, and Shirelle's going on vacation anyways. So I hope Shirelle has fun on her vacation, and we will see you guys next time.
Comedy Law, yeah, we're here to play. Max, Shirelle, Keith leading the way. Lawyers with laughs and jokes to slay. Tune in, folks, it's Comedy Law today.